Allah Almighty has created everything for some task. Sun performs its own task. Trees do their own job. Water and air mind their own business. Allah Almighty has created man. They must have any task. So Allah Almighty says about it, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And I have created the jinn and the men only for this, that they may worship me. Worship is where there is acknowledgement. So Allah has created men for His acknowledgement. What's benefit of God's acknowledgement? This is that more a man recognizes Allah's being and attributes, that is, more the acknowledgement is, more his nearness with Allah will increase. So we have come to know that the purpose of human life is acknowledgement of God, and a consequence of acknowledgement is nearness with Allah. So you should say that nearness with Allah is excellence of humanity. Now see this excellence in the light of explanation. All problems will be solved. Let us search for the sense of this nearness, result of this nearness, and the meaning of the nearness in the evidences of Sharia. Hadith Qudsi, direct speech of Allah. Sahih Bukhari, Kitab al-Riqaiq, Hadith 6502. عن أبي هريرة قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله قال من عادى لي وليا فقد آذنته بالحرب وما تقرب إلي عبدي بشيء أحب إلي مما افترضت عليه وما يزال عبدي يتقرب إلي بالنوافل حتى يحبه فإذا أحببته كنت سمعه الذي يسمع به وبصره الذي يبصر به ويده التي يبطش بها ورجله التي يمشي بها وإن سألني لأعطينه ولئن استعاذني لأعيذنه. Abu Hurairah narrates, Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that Allah Azza wa Jal said, one who has an enmity with my friend, I announce my fight with him, and the things by one comes near to me, by which one comes near to me, compulsory worships are most beloved of those things. And my man keeps gaining nearness towards me with the help of supererogatory worships until I make him my beloved one. So when I make him my beloved one, I become his ears, he hears with. I become his eyes, he sees with. I become his hands, he holds with. I become his feet, he walks with. I do give him if he demands anything from me, and I do save him if he wants to escape from any evil by having my shelter. Some people state the meaning of this hadith, that when a man becomes beloved one of Allah by gaining his nearness, then he does not hear any prohibited thing by his ear, does not see anything against the orders of Sharia by his eyes, and does not do any forbidden deed by his hands and feet. This meaning is absolutely wrong and similar to self-amendment in hadith. For through this meaning we come to know that a person gaining nearness with Allah after being beloved does not do any sin by any portion or part of his body, and whatsoever he does with ear, eye, hand and foot is permissible and just according to Sharia. But when this meaning is presented on the words of hadith, no word of hadith supports it. A man with ordinary sagacity can understand it very easily, that the men mentioned above had become beloved of Allah through avoiding sins. If it were possible to gain the status of belovedness even after being involved in sins, then the need of piousness and abstinence would be no more. Allah Almighty says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. O beloved, say you, O people, if you love Allah, then follow me, Allah will love you. Therefore it is impossible to get the status of belovedness without compliance of Prophet, that is piousness and abstinence. So firstly a man leaves bad deeds, performs penitence, compulsory and supererogatory adorations, and then he becomes beloved one. after being beloved of Allah, Allah Almighty becomes his ears with which he hears. Allah becomes his eyes with which he sees. Allah becomes his hand with which he catches. Allah becomes his feet with which he walks. All this is after being beloved. But it cannot be that he keeps doing bad deeds and even then becomes beloved and leave bad deeds afterwards. So when the man gains nearness with Allah, then the brightness of Allah's attributes of hearing, seeing and power starts appearing in the man's attributes of hearing, seeing and power. And in this way, this beloved man becomes demonstration of Allah's attributes. It means that this man hears with Allah's light of hearing, sees with his light of seeing, demonstrates the power with his light of power. Neither God gets dissolved into man, nor does the man become God. But this beloved man, being the demonstration of God's attributes, reaches the status of human eminence for which he was created. If you contemplate, it will be clear for you that the verse وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ has the same meaning. Whose manifestation is this virtuous person? Whose manifestation is this pious person? Worship means running. A virtuous person ruins his ego and mankind qualities in the court of his God. That is, he perishes them through abstinence and adorations. It does result in the magnificence of divine qualities in the man instead of his own mankind qualities. And the man becomes bright with the light of God's attributes. Why is it possible for a man to become a demonstration of God's attributes of hearing and seeing when it has been proved from Quran that the voice of Inni an Allah, verily I am Allah, can come from a tree? Allama Imam Fakhruddin Radi alayhi rahmah, while commenting briefly on this Hadith Qudsi, says, and similarly, when a man gains steadfastness in good deeds, then he reaches a status about which Allah said, Kuntu lahu sam'an wa basra, I become his ear and eye. When the light of glory of Allah becomes his hearing, then he can hear all voices far and near. When this light becomes his vision, then he can see the things far and near. And when the light of glory becomes his hand, then he can manifest his authority power over everything difficult and easy, far and near. Whatsoever Imam Razi wrote in the honor of noble man was considering the man as a creature and worshipper, which clarifies that to accept these magnificent attributes for that man is not against his worship and creature being. It is the eminence of humanity that a man becomes demonstration of God's attributes. When the luster of hearing attributes of Allah Almighty starts shining in his hearing, then he'll hear every voice far and near. It is not his personal attributes, but a shadow of luster of attributes of Allah Almighty. It is shade and reflection. It is shadow and reflection. Shadow and reflection are temporary, and one is permanent, whose the reflection is. So the right tawheed is this, that the man should gain such nearness with Allah that he might become a mirror of God's attributes. So Imam Razi says that when the light of vision of Allah Almighty shines in the polished mirror of man's vision, then he will see everything far and near. When the luster of Allah's power appears in the hand, feet, heart and brain, he will have authority on everything, difficult and easy. Now tell me, when the difficult comes under his authority, then what he is except being solver or difficulty, that we call mushkil kusha. But remember it well, that being a solver of difficulty for Allah is personal, And that for man is conferred by Allah. Because when the man solves difficulty or fulfills any deeds of anyone, then he does so with Allah's favor, the power granted by Allah and the permission of Allah. So it got clear that our belief is a cutter for all the roots of polytheism. What then will be Islam if people call right Tawheed as shirk? So the authority of friends of God, saints, over every easy as well as every foreign difficult matter in these attributes of intelligence, knowledge, hearing and vision, which are found in these beloved ones of court of God, having evidence, has been proved. And the evidence is that these saints are benefit providers and have a capability to get God's will through their prayers in the court of Lord of all worlds. They have powers to solve the problems. They have abilities to see from a far distance, and they can also hear voice from a far distance. Disbelievers of Makkah used to bring false accusation against Allah, that Allah gave authority and permission to these stones and idols, whereas the reality was not like that. When we applied the condition of permission over these saints and prophets alayhimussalam, then shirk vanished, and when we proved their authority, kufr also went away. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, we are free from shirk by having the belief of Allah's permission, and free from kufr by proving the authorities of prophets alayhimussalam and saints. Some people have a habit to paste those verses of Quran which have been revealed about idols over Muslims. So they have a habit to paste these verses over Muslims. In this way, they deceive innocent Muslims. Sahih Bukhari. Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala an considered Kharji sect worse than whole creatures, and said, these people paste the verses revealed about disbelievers and polytheists over Mu'mins, believers.